Good afternoon, everybody, and Happy New Year to you all and to everybody online listening. Obviously, there'll be so many of you. Welcome to the first Cabinet meeting of 2026. We'll crack straight on. Do we have any apologies, please, Craig?
No apologies.
I'm submitting an apology for Councillor Chambers, who's unwell today.
Know that.
Thank you. Do we have any late items, please?
So there's one late item, which is an addendum for contract and financial procedure matters. So when the report was published on the 24th of December, there was an item in there relating to the use of £24,000 for a roof replacement to undertake essential associated works on a privately owned terrace property. The report contains all the information for the decision, but at your request, Leader, you wish to disclose some additional information to councillors, specifically regarding the location of the property and the source of that funding. Disclosing that information publicly, however, could risk identifying the property owner and could also prejudice negotiations on future requests for that source of funding. So it's proposed that this addendum be taken in private session. If we propose exclude the press and public motion after item 13, and the Chair of Exec Scrutiny has agreed to a waiver to facilitate that.
Lovely, thank you, appreciate that, and thank you for the transparency of that additional information. Are we in receipt of any petitions?
No petitions. Sorry, can I just go back to late items as well? This isn't a late item, but just worth noting, for item 11, the council tax base report, a small typo has been amended in paragraph 7.1. So this is the removal of some pound signs in that particular paragraph. It should just be a number. So that's been updated on the Democracy Portal, obviously for those with hard copies, just for noting.
Okay, thank you very much for highlighting that. Any receipt of petitions?
Sorry,
no.
None.
No. Identification of urgent items to which call-in will not apply?
None.
Declarations of interest, anyone? No, we're all solid. And we'll turn then to the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of December. Are we all happy that they're a true reflection? Okay, thank you very much. As always, on item 7, with recommendations from the Executive Scrutiny Board, I'll take them item by item. So we move straight to the key decisions, and item 8 is the relocation and refurbishment of Bonsall View short break services for younger adults with learning disabilities. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is a good news story for the Council, I think. It should improve various services simultaneously. We do have a need to improve and expand the respite care in the city, that provided by Bonsall View. And that's for younger adults who are classed from 18 to 64 years of age, actually. And that place provides breaks for people with learning disabilities and complex care and support needs. So that's a really, really important service, and I wanted us to do more to help those families who really, really need the break from very intensive support of their family members. So at the moment, that service provides a certain number of cases. It will be able to provide more places if it moves accommodation. So the Council has prioritised £2.6 million of capital funding to relocate the service to the vacant and former Morlison Day Centre. And that's situated on the same site as Bonsall View. So this is not a complex or difficult move as such. It will just provide more opportunities for people to have respite care. It's currently in Arboretum House Care Home. So once that Bonsall View service has moved out of Arboretum House, that will be vacant, and it's envisaged that it may be a good opportunity for the Derbyshire Community Health Services Trust, the NHS Trust, to move their reablement and care service from Perth House to that building. That hasn't, as far as it's not been agreed yet, but that's the plan. And so once that service is regularly located, we're envisaging that Perth House will become vacant. And that the use of Perth House and the surrounding area will be subject to a future report. We'll have a full and thorough consideration by the council at that time. Some of the options that we might be looked at for the Perth House are temporary accommodation or housing. I mean, clearly no firm decision can be made on that yet until we've got an agreement with the Community Health Services Trust that they are going to move their service from Perth House to Arboretum House. So I guess that's not as clear as it should be, but having set that out, I do ask Cabinet to note the recommendations and to support them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Councillor Swan.
Yeah, just to reiterate, I think this is a really positive step for our community, particularly carers. As somebody who used to manage carer support services in Derby City and Derbyshire, I recognise the challenges and strains that carers have. So to have a modern purpose-built centre where carers can actually have access to respite is really positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely invaluable, because our carers obviously take on a huge responsibility when they're looking after loved ones that need intense care. And if they weren't able to do it, if they came to breaking point and couldn't cope any further, then obviously that burden falls to us. So it's really important that we invest in these services to enable carers to have that respite, which is just vital for everyone's self-care, isn't it? And health and well-being. Any other comments from Cabinet members? Okay, thank you. Welcome to the meeting. Councillor Prosser and Councillor Kerr, do you have any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Then I'll move to the Executive Scrutiny Board recommendation, which is that they resolve to ask that Council Cabinet do not release the site for sale, or at least retain freehold control over the land at Arboretum House to enable this wider site to be available for possible repurposing in the future. So just to reassure the Executive Scrutiny Board, should the freehold sale of Arboretum House or Perth House, or however this plays out, whether it goes to the Derby Community Health Services, and if that progresses, or whether it doesn't, the future use of both buildings will be subject to a future report of Council Cabinet, which will outline all options. And of course, we're going to very carefully consider what that repurposing would be for the future. And those options, as Councillor Martin explained, include, but don't restrict to, temporary accommodation or housing. So we'll note the recommendation, but it's, obviously that is already in hand and will happen. Nothing's going to be moved on without careful consideration. Councillor Kerr, you had your opportunity, but as you're on the Executive Scrutiny Board, I will allow you to come in. Do you have a question?
It's a question about the understanding of recommendations 2.3 and 2.4, because my understanding from recommendation 2.3 is that is Cabinet delegating the potential sale of Arboretum House, whereas 2.4 is bringing back the future use of Perth House to Cabinet. And I'm just concerned that officers probably wouldn't, but they would have the permission to sell the freehold of Arboretum House on the basis of the recommendation that Cabinet's considering now.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. But I can assure you that no officer can sell a property without consulting the Cabinet member for Government and Finance and the Cabinet member for Health and Adult Care in this case. So obviously it cites those two Cabinet members and the decision can't be made without them, but ultimately the entire Cabinet would have a discussion about it. It wouldn't necessarily need to come back to a Cabinet meeting for that, but we would be fully cited on it. Okay, so I'll go to the recommendations, which are 2.1 to 2.4. Are we all agreed? Thank you very much, Cabinet. Okay, item 9, beg your pardon, skipping ahead, is send an alternative provision, sufficiency in capital programme, and that is being introduced by Councillor Hazelgrave.
Thank you, Chair. Cabinet, you will be already aware of steps the Council has been taking to increase the number of school places within the city for SEND pupils. We have received in the past quite a number of items supporting our legal duty as set out in section 8.1 of the report to provide sufficient places to meet SEND pupils' needs. I will begin by taking Cabinet through recommendation 2.5, the cessation of the St Giles Capital Scheme as outlined in sections 4.13 and 4.14. This Cabinet previously approved a capital scheme to the value of 0.229 million with the intent to deliver on St Giles site SEND satellite provision in collaboration with another school in the area. Both schools are in different trusts and preliminary conversations led the Council to the conclusion that we would be unable to proceed in the way the scheme originally outlined. I asked Cabinet to formally approve cessation of the St Giles SEND capital scheme, adding that the Council will continue to explore ways of enhancing SEND provision within the city, particularly for primary age pupils. This brings me to recommendations 2.1 and 2.2, which, when works are completed, will serve in some ways to mitigate the effects of the St Giles scheme cessation. Cabinet is asked to approve an addition to the SEND High Needs Capital Programme, namely a scheme at Ivy House Special Schools to the amount of 1.7 million over this financial year and the next. The monies will facilitate an extensive repurposing of a building already on site, and on completion by September this year, Ivy House's maximum intake will increase from 99 pupils to 135. Ivy House specialises in teaching pupils with either severe learning difficulties, SLD, or profound multiple learning difficulties, PMLD. To have a facility in the city which can cater for these children's needs would greatly offset the current very high costs of finding out-of-area placements for SLD and PMLD pupils, particularly PMLD pupils. A total of almost 17 million was spent in 2024 to pay for out-of-area placements, using up to close to a third of the £60 million high needs budget. Providing more high-quality places close to home, that is, within the city, will greatly improve the quality of life of those extra children who will be able to attend Ivy House from September 2026, and their parents, with a much shorter journey time to and from school, also reducing the cost of home-to-school transport packages. Getting to a point where this scheme can be proposed to Cabinet has needed collaboration with two separate academy trusts, and it is heartening to see an example where such trusts have worked actively with the Council to enhance the city's provision for SLD and PMLD pupils. It is regrettable, to say the least, that that cooperation was not fruitful in the St Giles scheme. Cabinet recommended at section 2.4 to note the intention of, now we move on to section 2.4, really is 2.3, but it was numbered 2.4, to note the intention of St Ralph Sherwin Catholic Multi-Academy Trust to make a submission to the DFE to remove its current Enhanced Resource Base, ERB, for pupils with visual impairment, VI. Designed and purpose-built for a maximum of 24 pupils, by school year 27 to 28, it is likely that only 4 VI pupils will be on roll at St Benedict, and therefore the base is not sustainable. The Council currently has a VI team which supports children in schools and further education, and this team would take over the requirement for highly specialised support for the remaining 4 children at St Benedict should the DFE agree to the closure of the ERB. SRSC MAT, of which St Benedict is a part, in accordance with DFE guidance, is currently in consultation with stakeholders regarding the proposed closure. Parents and carers of pupils currently supported by the ERB will of course be very anxious that their children will have uninterrupted, high-quality support after any closure of the ERB at St Benedict. They can be completely reassured that St Benedict School has had this very much in mind when considering the closure of the ESB and its application to the DFE, and that remaining VI pupils will have the same level of support provided by the dedicated and fully competent specialised VI team at the council. Transition from one to the other will be a seamless garment. I recommend, therefore, urge you to support all 4 recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hazelgrave. And I just have to say I am so proud of the work that we are doing at this council in supporting our SEND children, bringing them closer to home, and, you know, all the while putting their needs first, but also, you know, this is helping the council's budget at the same time. So, you know, it's a win-win. And the fact that the previous plan didn't work out, you know, sometimes these things happen for a reason, and actually what comes from that is a better plan, and that's what's happened here. So well done to Sharon Buckby and the team. Please do pass that on, because actually what we've got here is something far, far better for the children of our city. So congratulations, Councillor Hazelgrave, as well. Are there any comments from Cabinet members? Councillor Swan.
Yeah, I think this is a really good piece of work. We're talking about sustainability, and sustainability for children and their parents. And out-of-area schooling should never be the first option for children. So for me, developing personal and social capital is about and should be the first priority. And as a consequence, developing relationships and local connections creates lifelong learning skills. So yes, thank you to the team, and really looking forward to see how this will develop. Thank you.
Councillor Hazelgrave, you want to come back?
Just to add for Councillor Swan, the new building which will be erected to repurpose at Ivy House will follow all the current building regulations and be as climate friendly as possible. So that's another bonus.
Councillor Nwaha.
Thank you, Chair. I just, perhaps this can't be said enough, but I think we should give kudos to the team for not just providing a fantastic service, but looking at children not as numbers on the balance sheet as some councils are doing right now in the country, but looking at children as people whose futures are being nurtured and who are providing the most help we can, given their circumstances. So I think if there's anything to take away from this is that we're not seeing children as numbers on a balance sheet, but we're seeing them as people who can then be supported to go ahead and live the best lives they can in the circumstances. Thanks, Chair.
Well said, thank you. Okay, nothing else from Cabinet members. Opposition councillors, do you have any questions? Okay, thank you very much. In that case, we move to recommendations 2.1 to 2.5. Are we all agreed? Thank you very much. Okay, item 10 is maintain schools term dates 2027 to 30. Quite uncontroversial and short, I hope, Councillor Hazelgrave?
Relatively short. There is a complication that LGR will feature in the period mentioned in the report, so I'll need to talk a little bit about that. Those of us who have been Cabinet members from the beginning of this administration may recall an item presented in July 2024 by Councillor Whitby, which presented the findings after a consultation on school term and holiday dates with stakeholders for the academic years 25 to 26 and 26 to 27. To summarise, there was an overwhelming support from the public and schools for option A at the consultation, which aligned dates with those of Derbyshire County Council. Cabinet agreed the term and holiday dates for both years as advised. The Council must now fully consult with stakeholders on these dates for 27 to 28 and 28 to 29. Cabinet is being asked to propose as an option to stakeholders that maintained Derby Schools' holiday dates should continue to mirror those of Derbyshire schools. These are set out in Appendix 2 of this item. The Council is required to provide at least one academic year's notice for schools on term dates. Whilst this, strictly speaking, only applies to our maintained schools, academies, trusts and free schools are recommended to adopt them. Clearly, during the period 27 to 30, the outcome of LGR will be known, and eventually setting school term dates will become the responsibility of the incoming authority. Should this remain a requirement for Derby City Council to consult stakeholders on, one of the options would be to mirror term dates proposed by Derbyshire at Appendix 2. This would give some continuity. It would also be a legacy option for the new authority to consider across a wider footprint, should and when the responsibility fall on them. I ask Cabinet to support recommendations 2.1 to 2.3 inclusive.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heathergrave. Infinitely sensible. And actually, the Table 2 and Appendix 1 was really useful because my children are no longer in school. So I'm one of those parents now, or people now, that has no clue when half terms are. Right, so are there any questions? No comments, wonderful. Then recommendations 2.1 to 2.3. Thank you very much. Painless. Item 11, Council Tax Base Report for 26-27, and it's Councillor Dinser.
Thank you, Chair. This is an annual report, Council Tax Base for 26-27. This paper is the kickstarts the budget setting process for the Council and is required as a formal calculation of the council tax base for each financial year, and to notify this tax base to both the Police and Crime Commissioner for Derbyshire and the Derby Fire and Rescue Service, who will be using this calculation to set their precepts as well. It must be calculated between the 1st of December and the 31st January and notified to those two authorities. This is an estimate figure of the number of domestic properties expressed in terms of Band D equivalents in the council's area during the financial year concerned. It is used to determine the headline charge for Band D properties in the city. Charges for other bands are calculated as defined fractions of the headline charge. The calculations used are the methodologies in Appendix 1, and this proposes that the council tax base for 26-27 is 73,825.71. So that'll probably get rounded up one way or the other. Band D equivalent properties compared with last year's council tax base of 73,139.57. So that's an increase of nearly 700 properties more in Band D. Hopefully the aim of the council is to maximise council tax collection, and the best hope for is 98.4%, which is identified in this report. So the recommendations, Chair, support the calculations done in the Appendix 1 methodology. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dinser, and apologies for whispering there. I just spotted another mistake in the recommendations at 2.2. It actually lists at the council meeting, Cabinet recommends to council to approve this calculation at the council meeting on the 7th of January. That's obviously today. What it should read is next week's meeting on the 14th of January. So we will amend that in the papers and note that in the minutes. And apologies, I think these papers came out on Christmas Eve. I'm sure everybody was keen to get home. Councillor Dinser.
In paragraph 7.1, there's also another little typo where it talks about the council tax base of being £73,825. It should be numbers for both that.
Thank you. Yeah, Craig already addressed that at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you. Okay. So, are there any questions or comments? Everybody? Nobody? Okay, thank you. Then recommendations 2.1 to 2.2. Are we agreed with the amended date? Thank you very much. Item 12 is the Housing Revenue Account Business Plan 2026 to 2055. Of course, we'll all still be here. Councillor Khan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The way I'm feeling, 55 days is long enough, right? I'm in shock, actually, that Councillor Dinser concluded his report quicker than Councillor Hazelgrave. Let's hope
The
this
New Year's
carries
resolution.
on. Yeah. Yes, Chair, going back to business, as you know, this plan was discussed to pre-agenda cabinet meeting, and since then it has been in the Derby Telegraph as well, so it's well documented out there. The plan is designed to provide social housing over the coming decades to those that need it most and address some of the issues of emergency accommodation. This is an annual plan, so it's 30-year housing revenue account business plan ensure. It ensures the long-term financial viability and sustainability of the HRA, which is the housing revenue account, whilst meeting the Council's housing priorities without going into deficit in any financial year. Although it is a 30-year plan, it is reviewed and updated annually to incorporate updated stock condition surveys, new government regulations such as rent setting policies and the right to buy reforms, as well as emerging economic factors like inflation and interest rates. The proposed housing revenue account business plan has been finalized, following a number of meetings with myself, Maz at the back, other officers, and significant tenant consultation. As a result, the plan balances value for money on social housing rent with investment in quality, safe homes and adding more social housing. It should be remembered that council rents are still 57% of private sector rents, and that 80% of our existing tenants receive some form of financial support with rents. Cabinet is asked to approve this ambitious new plan to reverse trends of the past with declining housing stocks and deliver much needed new homes in the city, future-proofing the HRA as we move towards the local government review. Chair, I'm asking Cabinet to approve this plan, as I believe it is on a sound footing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Khan. We do have to balance our HRA very, very carefully. And of course, we have the rising costs to consider too. Councillor Hazelgrave?
I'd just like to draw Cabinet's attention to 4.18.1, right to buy one-for-one receipts. The government, the present government, has increased the amount of money we can retain from right to buy to 100% as opposed to 50% under the previous government. So if we kept 50%, and for some inexplicable reason, 50% went to central government, we now get 100% of it. That increases our scope to actually replace the stock from those which are left, which are taken through right to buy. And this increases our capacity. Although we have a tight footprint in terms of where we can build, it gives us scope to actually build more with capital rather than borrowing for more to the HRA.
Councillor Khan.
Chair, in the interest of clarity and sort of transparency, I was going to ask Maz to sort of go through the figures and what have you, but Councillor Hazelgrave has jumped in first. So is there anything you'd like to add to that, Maz?
Would you just put your microphone on, please, Mazza? Thanks.
Thank you. Just in terms of specifics, in terms of there's a rent increase and service charge that needs to be approved, along with the management and maintenance fee that we've got a partnership agreement with Derby Homes, so the specifics of that. We've also got the rent convergence coming up, which would also help with additional resources to continue with the build programme. So all of those are valuable resources that we're using in terms of the value for money when you compare it to the rents. The HRA has gone through a bit of a period of huge pressures with the rent caps during the cost of living crisis, but also between 2016 and 2020 when we were required to reduce our rents when in actual fact inflation was increasing. So there was a nearly 14% loss of income. So it's a real turn of events with the right to buy reforms, the additional funding coming from there, but also the impact of that on the reduction or capping of the discounts, because as an authority we lost more houses proportionally than anybody else in the country, and that's being limited now. So it's a well-balanced plan. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really helpful clarity as well there, Mazza. Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions from Cabinet members? Okay. Councillor Prosser, Councillor Kerr? No? Okay, thank you. And forgive me, I've been neglectful of the Executive Scrutiny Board recommendations, but that's because they have noted the rest of these items, including this item 12. They resolved to note the report, as they did with 11 and 10 and 9. So in that case, we'll move to recommendations 2.1 to 2.6. Are we all agreed? Thank you very much. And that brings us to the final item 13, before the exclusion of the press, compliance with contract and financial procedure rules. Councillor Kozlowski.
Thank you, Chair. This paper discusses 5 items. Firstly, the acceptance of a grant of up to £568,000 revenue funding from East Midlands Combined County Authority, or EMCA, for the Bus Grant Award for 2025-26. This funding is a revenue allocation for the Enhanced Partnership Bus Service Improvement Plan. There was no requirement to bid for this funding. Public transport functions are expected to transition to EMCA on 31st of January, so later this month. A total of £379,000 of this funding has been received so far for this financial year. The award letter confirms that the existing Memorandum of Understanding will continue to apply to all the funding provided by the bus grant for local authorities, and that Memorandum of Understanding will govern the funding for 25-26. The funding will be spent on bus service improvements in line with the Bus Service Improvement Plan, which was approved by Cabinet on 16th of November 2022. Secondly, the report concerns the addition of a new scheme to the 2025-26 Housing General Fund Capital Programme. This is for £24,000 for a roof replacement and essential associated works. Just for background, due to the condition of an existing roof of a privately owned terrace property, water and pigeon ingress has occurred, resulting in damp penetration in adjacent properties, causing a statutory nuisance. An abatement notice was issued and an emergency temporary roof repair was completed, but the roof has continued to deteriorate. To resolve this and prevent further nuisance to neighbours, a full roof replacement is necessary, with associated works, as well as clearance and cleaning of the roof space. It is proposed that the works at the property will be financed from existing capital funding. The next item seeks approval to direct award a contract to an external service provider for the provision of maintenance of the hydroelectric plant at the Longbridge Weir Hydro Powerhouse, and to delegate authority to the Director of Corporate Governance, Property and Procurement, in consultation with the Section 151 officer and the Cabinet Member for Housing, Strategic Planning and Regulatory Services, to enter into a contract for the routine and reactive maintenance and repair of the hydroelectric plant at the Longbridge Weir Hydro Powerhouse site. The next item concerns the acceptance of up to £5 million from EMCA's investment fund for 2 Derby City Council site enabling schemes. These are the Marketplace, which would be up to £3 million, and Beckett Well, or also known as Duckworth Square, up to £2 million. Officers and partners have been working with EMCA to provide details of the proposals. The report seeks approval to delegate authority to the Director for City Growth and Vibrancy following consultation with the Section 151 officer and Cabinet Member for City Centre Regeneration, Strategy and Policy to accept MCA investment funding up to £5 million across the two schemes in Derby City as described in the report. And finally, and linked to that last item, the report seeks approval to delegate authority to the Director for City Growth and Vibrancy following consultation with the Section 151 officer and monitoring officer and Cabinet Member for City Centre Regeneration, Strategy and Policy to enter into all necessary grant and funding agreements with partner organisations as required to deliver the investment fund schemes as described previously. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kozlowski. And thank you for the report. Obviously, I'm going to speak on recommendations 2.5 and 2.6 regarding the £5 million from MCA for our two most strategic sites in the city. I'm absolutely delighted that we're accepting this funding to start enabling works on both sites, which is, as we all know, long overdue. And I'm pretty sure that the majority of the population of Derby will agree with me that it is time to move forwards and move on with both sites and just crack on and get it done. So it's really satisfying to know that MCA supports our ambitions and is demonstrating that with the funding to start those works and enable them to happen. Cabinet members, did you wish to comment on any of the financial procedure rules? Councillor Hazelgrave?
Just how prescient the people who got the Longbridge Weir Hydro Powerhouse were in building that facility. At present, it's bringing in 0.1 million per annum as it feeds into the grid. It runs 24 hours a day, except when there's a drought and the river's not flowing. And that, you know, that money goes in, and over 14 years or whatever, in fact longer than that, I think, they've actually provided 1.4 million on present figures to the council. So it's great to see that, and it clearly, when it's more efficient after it's been refurbed, it could be actually delivering more power to the grid when we're offline. Yeah, so really good and really green as well.
Councillor Dinser.
Yeah, just to add to that, this hydroelectric power plant was in 2011, and it's been working at a quite good efficiency. And this contract, it's a very technical piece of work, a piece of equipment, and there's only one company, as it says on the paper here, that can actually provide sufficient support 24/7 to keep it running. And it has provided power for this council house, and we're looking forward to working with this particular partner to make sure we can expand this to increase the generation out of this by 50% more, at least. So it will be providing more power and energy for this council house, and it's a model of how we can look to find other areas where we're in the city where we could do this.
Thank you. Any other comments from Cabinet members? Okay, thank you. Councillor Kerr.
Thank you for the endorsement of the project for the turbine, which is one that I started back in 2009. 2002, whatever it is, 2009. There is another turbine on the south boundary of the city, near the far end of Smart Park, which will have a slightly greater flow and has a similar height to this one. Would Cabinet be minded to support a project to take forward, putting a turbine across that weir to be able to provide a similar level of power?
I think that's a very, very big question for a public meeting that would require a great deal of discussion. So by all means, let's start that discussion. Thank you. Okay, the Executive Scrutiny Board resolved to note the report, and if there are no further questions or comments, recommendations 2.1 to 2.6, do we all agree? Wonderful, thank you very much, and thank you, Emka. So with that, item 14 is the exclusion of press and public. A resolution to exclude the press and public that under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, that the press and public be excluded from the meeting during discussion of the following items on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 1 and 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, and the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. One day I'm going to do that all in one breath. Okay, the press have left the room, and we'll just confirm that we're offline, but thank you